Yes, sir, you are audible.
First of all, sir, I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Nikhil, for joining.
I'll just go ahead and introduce myself.
Yes, yes,
My
yes.
name is Nikhil Suvarna. I am a network security engineer. So I have basically more than 5+ years of experience in network infrastructure and network security. Currently, I am doing the same for a bank, and I am also a CTF player. In my free time, I also like exploring some new network exploitation tools, one of which is the Nmap that we are going to take a overview of. So can we start? Like I'll show a basic overview of Nmap, which I like to call a network mapping tool. So I'm using Kali here to do the demonstration. So if we want to learn about Nmap, we can do a basic man command. Like if all the viewers here are familiar with Linux, there's a manual page for everything. So I have a tool here that is called Nmap. So if you want to learn more things about it, like a brief description about it, you can go ahead and type and will give you a basic overview of the application. So the description here says that this is a network mapper. It's open source. It's used for network
Sorry to
exploitation.
interrupt, Nikhil, sir. Actually, your voice is a bit low.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. So we'll go ahead. So I was saying that if you want to have a brief description about the tool, we can use the manual page that is inbuilt in the Linux operating system. So you can see, I hope you can see my screen clearly.
Yes, yes,
And
it's very clear.
okay, so let's see what the manual page has to say about the network mapper. So it says it's an open source tool. It's used for network exploitation and security auditing. So what this means, I'll basically tell you that in the real world, or maybe in some IT infrastructure that you host around your environment, or maybe on your local system, there are always ports open, and these ports are used to talk to each other. Like the services talk to each other using these ports. So with this tool, what we can do is we can map those ports. Like for example, I'll go ahead and quit this first and do a basic. Uh, First of all, let me show you. I have a host file here that I have created. Just a basic host file, which has two domains, that is Microsoft.com and Google.com. And there's one more IP for demonstration. This is basically a virtual lab that I have created in my local environment to show you all the ports. So for the start, what we'll do is we'll start with a verbose scan. That is, if we go ahead and type Nmap, we IP, for instance, we'll go with Microsoft. So what this will do is, first of all, it will ping the Microsoft.com, it will fetch the IP, and then it will do a basic port mapping scan on the Microsoft.com's domain. So if I click on enter, it has been started. As the scan is started, it is showing me that there's some open ports. When the scan is done, it is showing me two ports here. You see here, and I'll tell you why we use this tag V. This tag V is used as a verbose mode. Like whatever that scan you're performing, it will show you an exact overview of that scan, like what exactly is running in the background. So this is how it is. Like if I do that without the tag V, I just do Microsoft.com, it is not showing me that what techniques that are going in the background. It will just show me the result once it's done. So we'll wait for it. See. So I hope you guys understood that what exactly is this pack V. So right now we'll stick with minus stack V. Since we already ran the scan, just go ahead and explain this to you. So when I did this, it is showing me that on this particular Microsoft.com domain, there are two ports open, and that is TCP port 80. It shows the port, the state of the port, that is the port 80 is open, and what kind of service that it is running. So everyone here, I hope they know that port 80 is like always a default port for HTTP, and port 443 is for HTTPS. So with this particular flag in Nmap, we can discover what ports are open. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and try with some other domain. Let's say we'll go with the host number 2, that is google.com. So again, I used TAC-V, which is showing me what exactly the Nmap is doing in the background. Again, so on google.com as well, I see these two ports. Since these are like the real world public domains, so they have a lot of filters going around. So they are only, I'm sure there are many other ports open on this particular domain, or the IP address that it is flashing here on this domain, but they are like well protected under the firewall. If you see, the WordBoss mode is also telling me that there are 998 filtered TCP ports. So this is not 100% sure whether there are 998 filtered ports, but Nmap is assuming that only two ports are not filtered, they're open for everyone. And this is because, like, right now, if you pull up your browser and if you click, just go on your search bar and type google.com, it will open the page. And if it is HTTPS, it is running on port 443. Or if you do HTTP particularly and you click enter, it will take you to HTTP site, which is running on port 80. So this is open for everyone, which is why we can see these two ports here. So in some other scenario, I'll go ahead and use my third host, which is my virtual lab that I've created here on my local host. So I'll go ahead and punch in the IP. 192.168.1.1.5. So if I click enter, all right, that was pretty quick. Okay. Since this is local host, it didn't take much time. It was quickly flashed. So in this third scenario, we can see that there are many other ports apart from what we see in the previous scan. So here we can see more than two ports. That is, as I told you, that this is a neat table that Nmap shows us about the ports and the services. So here we can see that there is port 21, there is port 22, there is port 80, port 443, and that's port 3306. And if you Google all these ports, these are all default ports. So if you Google them, you'll find that mostly on these ports, only this kind of services are running. Sorry, my bad. Okay. So 21 is for FTP service, 22 is for SSH, 80 for HTTP, 443 for HTTPS, and 3306 for MySQL. So I hope you got the difference here. Like whatever that I showcased right now, do you guys have any questions regarding all this? Like anything you didn't understood? Then maybe we can proceed to the next flag, because it's very important that the viewers should understand all this. You can go ahead and ask me any question if you have anything related to the specific switches that I just showcased.
Guys, if you have any questions, post it on the chat. If you don't have, you can say no. YouTube also the same. If you have any questions, you can post it on YouTube, or else you can see. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm assuming that this thing is clear.
Nikhil sir, there's
Okay,
a
so there's a
question.
question. Okay,
Yeah, in the chat, in the Zoom chat.
okay.
Could you please mention again the major difference? Major difference between
Is the difference between, sir? Sorry, I didn't get you.
no major difference. That's what Bikash is saying. What do you mean by major difference?
Major difference between what? Like, I didn't get it.
Absolutely. So Bikash, can you write the question completely or unmute yourself and you can ask? Okay, between says searching by IP or searching by domain names. And then if you Nikhil sir, if you see the chat, there are two more questions which are coming in. When I use T5 switch, I am getting cap uh, cap with error. May I know the issue? Okay. Uh,
Okay, with that T set T5, we'll move on to the later thing in the.
okay. Yes. Yes. Okay. So.
First, we'll stick to the
Mhm.
TAC-V switch that I just showcased.
Yeah.
So, anything specific to that? Like, as I see a question here that is, what Nmap uses behind the scenes for port discovery? Okay, and there is searching by IP or domain name. Okay, so like a lot of times that, for example, right now, when I showed you the scenario one where we used Microsoft.com. So we don't exactly know what Microsoft.com is using in the background, as in the IP address that they have used to host the Microsoft.com domain. So, well, in that case, we can also find the IP address by just pinging the Microsoft webpage blindly, Microsoft.com. Let's see if I do a count of two. Okay, so the IP address I'm getting to see, I think I misspelled it. All right. So if you a lot of times in penetration testing or some other like real world testing, you'll only be given a domain name to test on it. So you don't know what infrastructure they're using in the background or like what IP addresses are defined to do the same. So what we can do is we can either ping the domain that has been given to us if it is possible to ping the service. If it's not, because Nmap is doing the same thing. When you use the switch minus V or minus V is just a verbose mode, like it is showing you what all things are running in the background. But if you just do a normal Nmaps and the IP address or the domain name, it will still find the IP address for the same because in the background it is pinging the same service and it is telling you the IP. Then Nmap is running over to the IP address and then it is doing the port scan. Because as I told you, Nmap is just a port mapper. It will only give you results about the ports that are running on a particular IP address. By that, I meant a server or any other web service. So you can either use the domain name itself in the flag or maybe the IP address if you know. So that doesn't matter. You can do both. I hope that is clear. So, like moving on, in this scenario, like I showed you, I have a host file that I created. Let me clear this from this. Okay. So as I told you, I have created a host file that I mentioned. Like in this scenario, like if you are in a big testing environment where like maybe 10 or 20 or maybe hundreds of domains are given, or in that case, if they give you like 10 IP addresses which doesn't have domain, it is like raw hosted on IP, or maybe there are some domains. So if you want to like make your scan faster, and because it's really tedious, you and me we both know it's really tedious to scan each and every domain or IP that has been given to you. So what we can do is we can make a list of all those hosts, be it an IP address or a domain name. So we can put it into a host file that I did here, or a text file if you want. And then what we can do is there is a special flag for like, throwing a list of IP addresses or maybe domains to Nmap so that it can perform the scan particularly. So what we will do is we will just run Nmap and uh, specify the host.txt and then the verbose mode so that we can see what is going on in the background. If I click on enter, see the scanning verbose mode itself is showing me that it is scanning 3 hosts, out of which it is scanning 2 ports per host. As I told you, if you only have domains with you, it will first perform a ping scan. When they do a ping scan, it gets the IP address of the domain that is hosted on. So in my previous ping, when we ping the Microsoft.com, we got this IP address. So we don't have to do this manually. Nmap will do it for us so that we save time on it. So here we can see response for individual part. Yeah. For Microsoft, all these ports are open. For Google, all these ports are open. And for the virtual machine that I've hosted on my local host, all these ports are open. We are getting the same results that we did in the first scenario. So this is just a way of like keeping yourself productive. Like you don't have to do each and every scan. It will waste a lot of time. Because in the pen test environment, you'll be given a specific time limit, like to complete, or maybe you will be asked to give a specific timeline, whether how long it will take to do a particular pen test. So I hope this thing is clear. The flag 2 is clear, which is like throwing a host file on Nmap and asking it to do a mass scan. If you have any questions, you can just type in the chat or maybe you can unmute yourself. I see Mr. Pradhan is says he got it. Any other questions? Like anyone else who wants to ask anything about this?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, I would like to ask the host file. Do we first create it or that command automatically creates the host
No,
file?
you have to create a host file. You can do it manually if you want, like just open your favorite text editor. Go ahead, go with facebook.com.
Okay, and does the location matter or anywhere it will
Uh,
still
it does.
work?
I mean, like right now, my terminal is open on my root directory. So I've created a host file here. So if
Oh,
you have a host file in downloads, maybe you can go ahead and
Nikhil sir,
just
one
have to give the correct
question.
path of the file because this file matters. When you use this switch tag IL, it is looking for a host file. So right now in my scenario, I'm using the host file in my root directory. It doesn't matter where you keep the host file, just have to make sure that the path is correct. The given path is correct.
okay. Thank you.
Nikhil sir, there is a question which is posted on YouTube.
Okay.
I sent you on Zoom only. What
Okay. So I'll
screens
just read
are
it out, sir.
other 998 closed TCP ports? Yes.
Okay. So as I said, the Nmap verbose scan, which is like showing me what is going around in the background, it is saying it is saying that the possibility of 99 ports closed TCP ports, right? So that that is not 100% sure whether those ports are closed or like they are not open or they're unfiltered or filtered. In a lot of scenarios, like a big domain like google.com or microsoft.com, they have a lot of network infrastructure protecting their environment. So there is a possibility that they're closing all those ports and that is not available to be used by public or like the world who is trying to access those servers. So Nmap is just giving me an, like, maybe it said that it's 90% accurate that those ports are closed. So there may be scenarios where there is a firewall between those servers which is blocking those ports. They're checking whether which IP address is trying to access those ports. If we are not in the whitelisted IP address, like we are not from the Google domain, that the local domain that they use like inside their infrastructure. If you're not coming from that, maybe it is closed. Or sometimes it's just a network protocol and it's a networking call, whether who should be allowed to enter which port or not. It's simple as that. I hope I was clear, sir.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So can we go ahead?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So let's say that you have been given a full subnet to scan. For example, in my local network, I use an IP address. Just a second. All right. So let's say in my local environment, I have many other hosts running. So if you want to check that which all hosts are running, so I just go ahead and my local environment is 192.168.1.0/24. This is the CIDR. It's the subnet, which is, and with /24, if you know the networking protocols, /24 means that it contains 255 hosts, like in 0 to 255. And that's another thing, 0 to 255. So in the networking language, we write it as 24. This is the CIDR. So if we do this, we do it to see what is going on in the background. I click enter. See, currently it is showing me whatever host that is running in my background, in my local host. For example, if you have a big network and it's obviously not possible to scan each and every IP address. But for instance, if you say that there are only 100 computers, or maybe, okay, we'll not go with that big number, we'll stick to 10. If we say that there are only 10 IP addresses in a particular IP subnet, and we naturally don't know about it, and that is our job to find out. And we can't just go ahead and scan all the ports. So what we do is, if we have a subnet, which will obviously be given to us, that we are hosting a particular environment, and in this environment, we have certain hosts, and there is a possibility that, as I said, we'll go with 10 hosts that we see in in a network. So there are 10 hosts in a network, but then we don't know that which 10 hosts are actually genuine, and we want to perform a test on. So in my scenario, there are many hosts here. So like this, when I use this flag to scan my whole subnet, you can see there are a lot of hosts. And it is ignoring all, it is pinging all the hosts in my local area. So with that said, it is checking for every host. So now here you can see that starting from 192.168.1.0, it is going up till, let me scroll down. All these hosts are down. Right now, none of the devices in my network are having these IP addresses, which says down. So there are some IP addresses that has been assigned by my router to those. So here you can see there are 7 hosts. and all these hosts. And this IP address belongs to my local lab that I just mentioned. So it is showing up in the scan. This is my local router. Again, okay. Same way, it is hopping onto the other IP address which is available on the local network. So if I scroll down, you can see it fetch the name of my router, that is Archer. And then the local lab I just mentioned, DVWA, Damn Vulnerable Machine application. This is my Kali machine. This is my host machine. This is a mobile device on my network. And this is my TV. Another mobile host on my network. So like if you want to find particular devices in a network, you can just put in the whole subnet of a network, like how I did. So I hope I was clear on this part. Like if you have any questions, and of course you can do this on a domain as well, provided those domains are not protected, unlike the Microsoft.com and the Google.com. So we'll stick to the IP address part first. So if you have any questions regarding this flag, you can just hit up on the chat or maybe we can move ahead. Okay, I see someone saying, can you show the command once again? You mean?
Also, Nikhil sir, I have like sent you on DM of Zoom. There are questions which are coming from YouTube. So ideally, we do put it into the Zoom, but we have direct messaged you. Can you check that?
Okay, I'm just reading the messages that are coming up on the Zoom chat.
No problem.
Okay, so someone is saying that to show the command once again. All right. So like this is my local network and that is 192.168.1.0 and I'm using a /24 saying that I need to scan the whole subnet. And I'm also using TAC V as I mentioned for verbose mode, which is showing me what is going on in the background. So if I click enter again, the scan has started. In the very first, you can see it said it is scanning for 256 hosts. Out of which it will show me ports that are down, sorry, the hosts that are down and the hosts that are up. Okay, scroll it down. All right. So we are now on that part where Nmap actually found something on my network. That is showing me the port, state, and service that is running here. So you can see all my hosts, Kali, Wizard, two of my devices, and a TV. All right. So I
Hello.
see one more question here. Does this scan affected by what network
I
are
think
Kali
I have.
machine connected, like NAT, bridge adapter, NAT network? Uh, what you asked here is a total different scenario. Right now, I am on a bridge adapter because I wanted to show you devices, how you find them on a network. So I am on a bridged adapter. So if you are on NAT, if you're using NAT, maybe you won't find anything because that particular virtual machine will only be able to find itself since it hosts a new network, since it hosts a new subnet for itself. So for the demonstration purpose, I'm using a bridge adapter here so that I can show you all the devices that are actually being like live on my network. So for that scenario, I'm using bridge adapter. So I hope I was clear on this part. Anything else you want to ask? Okay, someone is asking me to repeat the multiple IP scan. So the question here that you're saying is like NAT bridge adapter or NAT network. This is like a whole different scenario. It has nothing to do with Nmap. But okay, as I said, that the bridge adapter is like bridging your local network. For example, if you have a virtual machine, or maybe at your home scenario, like you have a router where you're connected to your Wi-Fi, like you have your phones or maybe your TV or your computers. So if you use a bridge adapter in the virtual machine, what that will go ahead and do is it will put your virtual machine on your main local network, like how your phones or your TVs are connected to your router. And with NAT, it will create a new network for itself. Like it is isolated from your local network. Like your TV or your phone maybe can't talk to your virtual machine. So in my case, I'm using a bridge adapter to showcase. That's it. That's simple as that. Nothing else in that. So I hope there's no other question specific to hosts. If there is any, please go ahead and ask, or we'll just move ahead.
Sir, can you please repeat the multiple scanning?
Okay, so like if you have a host file, for example, I have in my local directory. So you can mix up those things with anything you want, like domains, IP addresses. So if you want to do a multiple scan, you go ahead and write Nmap. Sorry, I misspelled it. If I go ahead and click on enter, it is scanning all those three hosts in my host file. I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah, sir.
Okay. So do you understood what how to do like host scanning, like a mass host scanning?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so like we'll move ahead.
Sir, actually, how it Nmap is working behind it? What was the logic? Like, it is going to every IP and knocking it, or something else?
Yes, exactly. That's a very good question. And as you see, if I used a word boss mode, which is showing me what is going on in the background. So the very first step it is doing a ping scan. It is pinging all the hosts and it is checking whether they are down or up. If they are up, then the Nmap is going further and doing all the investigation, like discovering the ports. If it is down, it is just completely ignoring that host. That is a simple logic that Nmap is doing in the background.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, sometimes the Nmap is also following some predefined rules or predefined answers that like that. Sometimes it give false positive. Means that
Sorry,
they already written.
I didn't get your question. Sorry. Can you please
It's
come
like
again?
that. There is some predefined rules. He give the request to some server. Then he got response, and then it matches this response to already predefined dictionary. They follow that response, and then it said that this is open and this is filter and other thing.
Yes. So what you asked is completely correct. But to dive into that, this is like it's like a networking foundation, I would say. Like if you need to know the networking basic networking rules for that. That why and what it is doing in the background. Like if I explain it to you, it's doing a three-way handshake. If the three-way handshake is completed, it's called like sync ACK and ACK. If the three-way handshake is completed, that's how the Nmap knows that there is a host which is live, and then it can further enumerate the same, whether there is any port open or not.
This
So
means
if
that
you
they
you
are
have to understand the networking rule for that, and
okay.
this is a different overview that we are looking at.
Yeah, means that they are Nmap is comparing its no all the responses they are getting. They will compare with their on all already have some rules that they are using to compare.
Not exactly. It is just doing a three-way handshake to all the ports that, not ports, but the devices or hosts, I would say, on the device, on the network. And it is just trying to do a three-way handshake. If the three-way handshake is successful, or for that matter, just a two-way handshake, we'll learn that in the, like, we will learn that in the further. There are many other flags that we can discuss. So we'll learn that later. First, we'll stick to all this, that how it is, how to perform like a mass scan or something. So this is what this was about, the mass scan. So we'll stick to this. So in a simple term, I would say it is doing a three-way handshake, which you will learn in the further video.
Okay.
Okay, so Nikhil sir, I see some questions that you have posted on the Zoom chat.
Yeah,
Like
that
why
questions
you
are from
used
YouTube
slash
itself.
24 and not any other number. So this is not a Nmap specific question. For this, we have to dive into the networking part. Like this is the
Well, no,
CIDR
it's not a problem.
networking subnets that you have to be familiar with. Only then you can use it. So you need to learn subnetting for this, or maybe you can go ahead and Google CIDR network subnets, and maybe you will find more options to it. I use slash 24 because this is a local network, and I am trying, and my local network is predefined. Like I'm using a normal default home router that you guys might be having in your house as well. So this is using a local subnet, which is by default is slash 24. I mean, in a home network, in a like home network like mine, you don't need more than 200 hosts. You might not be having more than 200 hosts. Or in my scenario, I don't even have 10 devices in my network. So I'm using slash 24 works perfectly for me. Like slash 24 means there is only not not more than 256 hosts in my subnet. So that is how it is. And I see there is one more question. Can we find hidden directories or what version of services like Apache is running on a host machine? Hidden directories, not exactly, but yeah, you can definitely look for what versions of services like Apache or maybe SQL that is running behind. We'll move on to that. Okay, for now, we'll learn a new switch, and that would be, for instance, if you want to like know in a particular network what operating system that is going around. So I'll start with Nmap to know the operating system of a particular host. I will try that on my virtual lab. Sorry, it's 5. Again, we'll use a verbose mode. Okay, so this needs root privileges. All right. Okay. So in this case, we did the same thing, but we are using a new flag here. TAC O stands for like operating system, to scan the operating system. And in this scenario, we can see a lot of output coming out compared to what they were in the previous scans. So here we can see that Nmap is stating that it is running Linux 2.6. So roughly we can have an overview that the OS details are Linux, which is accurate. Like I'm running a Ubuntu server in my background. It is also giving me the host name, that is dbwa. This is what I named my machine. So it is also giving me that. So if you want to find operating system of some particular IP address, you can go ahead and use this flag. All right. Okay, so there were questions that people were asking whether why those 998 ports are closed, why not they're showing up here on the scan. So, as I told you, a lot of times in a big infrastructure, they have firewalls or other networking equipments that are predefined and it is set to block certain requests from the real world. So, if we want to know if some ports are like behind the firewall or not, we can just go ahead and use this flag. Punching the IP 168.1.1.5 proposed function. I forgot the super user privileges. Okay. To understand this properly, we'll go ahead and try to maybe do it on Google.com. Because since this is the local machine, uh, I know there is no firewall here, and which is why the Nmap scan output is showing that there are 1000 unfiltered ports. All those scan ports are unfiltered. That means there is no firewall in between. Okay, I see a question. Can we scan outside the local network? Yeah, definitely we can do that. The command that you see on my screen right now, that is tac sa google.com tac v, this is not scanning my local network. This is scanning the google.com local network, or maybe the remote network, I would say. It's a remote network for us since I'm scanning it from here. So it is a remote network for us. It's not local. So if I do a scan on this, it will take some time. We'll wait for the scan to complete. Okay. So here. So
Sir,
this is the answer for your previous question. Okay, yeah, someone was saying something. Hello.
sir, I have one question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, sometime when we scan any node IP for a port, so they can block us through firewall.
Yes, they can definitely do that. And this is what they're doing. The google.com, they are blocking. It's not 100% sure whether there are 998 ports available on google.com. There is a possibility there may be some other ports. Like when I showed you in my previous scan, I scanned my local lab. It is exposing the SQL port and it is also exposing the SSH port. And like a company like Google or Microsoft, they spend billions of dollars to secure all these things. So they are definitely having network infrastructures in their local environment to protect those things. So this is the basic simple answer for your question. There's these ports. If there are these kind of ports available on the network, they are filtered. You can't access them. They are filtered. And these two ports, which is like open to the public, are the state is showing unfiltered because google.com is not blocking these ports. You are accessing google.com through these ports. So it is available for everyone. And there may be other services, like whatever you search on Google, there are crawlers in the background, which is like querying your search, where exactly I can search it. So those might be running some services in the background, like a SQL database or some other database for that matter, to save your search and then use it in for the later purpose. So they are blocking all those ports so that it is not exposed to the general public. So it can't be exploited. The whole idea of using this Nmap is network exploitation and reconnaissance. The very first stage of pen testing is reconnaissance. Like you have to spend a lot of time on recollecting information on a particular IP or a web server, I would say, like what ports that they are running, and for that matter, what services that are running on those ports, what versions those services are. So in this scenario, they are blocking all those things which is not allowed to be used in the wild. So they are only allowing these two ports. So with this flag, we can find those things like how what ports are unfiltered and what ports are filtered. Definitely, you won't be able to see the filtered ports. We'll see that in the later session. But yeah, I hope this is clear to everyone. Like how you can differentiate between whether the ports are unfiltered or filtered, whether there's a
Nikhil,
firewall or not.
Nikhil, I have one question.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Why the results are different? When I tried the same command in my calling machine, it is showing 1004 unfiltered TCP ports, where in your system it is showing 998.
Okay, so 998. So if so, there is a possibility that your local machine is not able to reach google.com. Are you able to
Okay.
reach google.com from your local
Yes, I
machine?
tried. Yes, I tried to reach by pinging it, but yes, it is reachable.
Okay, because I only see one possibility of not having that. If I ping google.com, so it's able to reach.
Yes, I'm also rich.
Okay, there might be some technical issue with that because if we calculate the same, I have the same 1,000 ports here, excluding these
Uh-huh.
two, which is why it is only showing 998 filtered TCP ports.
Okay. Uh, in my system, it's showing not shown 1000 unfiltered, but there is no details of the port which are unfiltered, like TCP 80 and 443 TCP. So these two options are not visible in my.
So you're not getting these options that I
No, no,
highlighted.
no. Yes, yes. These are not showing.
From a networking perspective, I believe that it's not been able to reach it. Can you open a browser and try to open the google.com? Or are you on a NAT bridge or like a bridge network?
NAT.
Okay, maybe you can try on a bridge network
Okay, okay, got it,
because
got
when
it.
you do that, your router is basically helping you reach out to google.com as a DNS service.
Correct, correct.
Yeah, so that way.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And I see a question here: is Nmap giving accurate results? No, it's definitely not. It is giving you results on assumptions that it is making, that whether a port is open or not, or whether there's a service or not in that scenario. Hidden directories, no, you can't do that, but yeah, you can map the ports definitely, or you can find the services. We'll move on to that in the later session. So I hope this flag was clear, finding the unfiltered ports. Because this is only doing an acknowledgement packet. It is only acknowledging whether it is available or not. Okay, so what we'll do is there are two protocols, right, in IPs like TCP and UDP. So if you want to specifically look for UDP ports, there's a special flag for it. And move on to that. U stands for UDP. We'll do a UDP scan on the local machine that I have. Five. This, forget about the super user privileges. All right. So it is doing a UDP scan now. What we'll do is it's taking a lot of time. We'll increase the intensity. Waiting for the scan to complete. Okay, it's completed. Okay, so in this case, there is no UDP ports. So we'll try this on percentage is increasing, which shows that it'll take a time. But yeah, we have to wait for it because this is the first stage of pen testing, reconnaissance. So you have to set a defined time, definite time for it. Also, as I mentioned, organizations like Google.com, they're spending a lot to safeguard their network. So there are many other services running which they are filtering, and it is like spoofing the Nmap. It is letting it know that there's nothing, but Nmap is still trying to search for things.
Nikhil, I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Can we bypass the VPN tunneling using this Nmap?
Bypassing the VPN tunnel.
Yeah,
As in, I didn't get your question. I mean,
I mean,
like you
it,
are on a VPN or
no. I'm not I'm not using any VPN. If the company, let's say for an example, one organization having their application or their database in a server, and only they can access through it through the VPN.
no,
And if we need,
well, in that case, you cannot bypass it because you, to do a reconnaissance, like to perform a scan on the host, you have to be on those networks.
okay.
So the results are popping, the percentage is gradually increasing. You can ask me questions meanwhile, the scan is completed.
Sir, while scanning the TCP ports, we will get the acknowledgement as the on the basis of a three-way handshake. So it is easier to identify that we are getting acknowledgement. That means port is on, or a network is, or IP address is on. But in UDP scan, how it will identify that it is open or not. We are not getting any acknowledgement or anything.
Correct, but it is doing a one way handshake, like only a acknowledgement packet. It is sending an acknowledgement packet, but it is not waiting for an acknowledgement packet to come back.
Okay, sir.
So, sir, the no response will be come by acknowledgement. So it can be uh, detected that gate will be accepted by server or not. How can it detect in UDP case?
Can you please come again? I didn't get your question.
So
You're
you
saying
said it only send a acknowledgement packet, but it is receiving on server or it is filtered by any server. How Nmap will be detect?
for that you have to perform. You have to use the flags in a series. Right now, I'm only showing you each flags what they do. So in that case, you have to also combine this scan with tag SA that we just showcased in the previous scan. So in that case, you will know that those ports are filtered or not.
We can use Xmax also, no? Combining null push and other.
Yes, you can do that.
So there is a one term port forwarding. Can you explain what is port forwarding and when Nmap can detect it or not?
That is a whole different scenario that you're asking about. It's a networking protocol. But yeah, definitely. I mean, Nmap doesn't care whether it is the port is being forwarded or not. It will still show you that which port it is actually reaching at.
And sir, one more things, IP spoofing. We can do IP spoofing using Nmap. At the last, can you demonstrate it?
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, sir.
As you guys can see, that 11 out of 11 dropped probes since last increase. This means that there is some evasion infrastructure in their environment, which is dropping all the packets. But Nmap will still try to assume whether there is any port or not. I see a question here, vulnerability scanning with Nmap. That is definitely possible. Meanwhile, this scan is running. You can go ahead and Google for Nmap NSE scripts. So you will find a lot of scripts for default services that is available today in the networking protocol. For example, SQL, SMB, or maybe DNS or RDP sessions. So if you find a particular port while you're scanning, if you find like a SQL port, if you're scanning a normal scan on the network and you find a SQL port, in that case, you can go ahead and look for any scripts that are available for checking vulnerability with SQL. So you can use those flags to check whether there is any vulnerability with those ports. And let me tell you, this is a basic scanning that Nmap does. So if you want to dive deep into all this, you have to go ahead and look into the NSE scripts and you will find a lot of ways how to do this. It is all like environment specific. We can't discuss everything in this session, but yeah, you can always go ahead and look at the description that there is a very good documentation on the Nmap website. If you go ahead and look for NSE scripts.
Nikhil, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
You have mentioned the NSC script. So I searched in Google. Like there are like thousands of scripts available there. So
Exactly.
let's say for an example, I am going to doing a network scanning or vulnerability scanning with the organization. So do I need to like manually do it everything, or do I have to like automate this thing?
Yes, there are many advanced techniques to do this, but it's always good to do the manual stuff because if you don't know anything about it, it's always good to do the manual stuff so that you learn more things about it. Like as I said, it is all service specific or the network specific or the service specific things. Like there might be a possibility that if you're scanning something, it is totally updated, it's all patched. You won't find any vulnerability using this default scripts. So it is all environment specific. So you have to deep dive into all this NSE scripts that are available, and then maybe you can find answers to it, like how exactly I can do it.
Sure. Thank you.
I see one more question about Nmap and ZenMap. So ZenMap is basically the GUI version, a graphical user interface of Nmap. It is doing the same thing, but it is helping you perform all the scans like on a GUI. So the ZenMap is, I think, yeah, it is available on Kali. Okay. So here you can do that. You can put your target here and then the command will automatically pop up. You can always go ahead and edit this, the flags that I showed you. You can set a profile for yourself like a quick scan, ping scan, intense scan, quick trace, anything you want. So this is basically doing the same thing, but it is giving you a nice overview of everything. So you can organize everything. If you're performing a big pen test, so it's really hard to keep track of things. So this is a good way to do that. But I still stick to the terminal interface. I like the CLI interface more, but it's basically doing the same thing. It's taking a lot of time. Maybe Since this is a very big network, it is taking a lot of time. So we can go ahead and go local scan as well. The host, the local vulnerable machine that I'm running to demonstrate is not having any UDP ports. Which is why it's very hard to demonstrate. I will stick to this. This is wasting a lot of time, so I would suggest we'll keep this scan running in the background and we'll move on to our next switch, which is like in a scenario wherein you want to avoid detection, like a stealth scan, one-way handshake. So what we'll do is I'll just open up a new tab here. To do a stealth scan, you can perform the same thing. Use my local host so that the scans are very quick. So now this is a stealth scan. This is only doing one-way handshake. The results are same, but you can always avoid detection in this. Like, for instance, if there is any firewall or anything behind the infrastructure, it is it is not letting them know that we are trying to scan it. This is very useful when you're scanning a big mass infrastructure, wherein these multiple ports can be detected as a denial of services, like distributed denial of service attack. So you can always use this stealth scan to avoid those things, and it is not recommended to perform this on a vast network, but you can always avoid detection. So I was looking at the chat, and there were people asking whether we can find the services or the versions running on a particular service or a port. So there's a flag for it, and tag V stands for version detection. And yes, of course, we can always combine all these flags together. Like if I want to do a version detection and in the same scan, I also want to avoid detection, you can also use the previous thing. So if I do on my local network, so in the very first output, you can see that, so I'll just scroll it, okay. And in the very first output, you can see that, see this line here. Some reason my Kali is not responding. I'll avoid this flag for now. We'll do a quick scan. Okay, so here you can see that in the very second line, you can see that it has loaded 45 scripts for scanning. So what this is doing is it is using the default NSE scripts, and using those scripts, it is performing all these actions and trying to assume what kind of services or the version numbers that are running on these services. So if you see the output here, it is a little different. In the previous scans, we could only see the beautiful table that I was mentioning about. We can see one more tab here, and that is the version. So here you can see that 21 port is open and it is running FTP service, and it is running a software called Pro FTPD, which is 1.3.2. In SSH, it is using Open SSH 5.3 Debian server. On port 80, it is running Apache service. So I could just see that there was a question wherein people were asking me whether if there is any Apache server running on port 80 or port 443 for that matter, can we know the service detection? So yeah, it is giving me an assumption about whether this thing is running 2.2.14. So with this flag, we can actually enumerate whether any version detection is available or not. And we can have a brief overview or maybe a better picture of the network, whether what kind of services are running behind. Okay, so moving on, we have one more flag here. Like if there is any case study wherein you want to scan all the ports in a network, in a particular network, and I would like to highlight this that this is not recommended doing on a real world scenario because this will again be flagged as a DDoS attack. So I'm just trying to do this on my local network right now. So if I want to detect all the ports, Nmap will go ahead and scan all the 65,000 ports. So if I do this, TAC and the IP address that I want, and of course the verbose mode so that we know what is going around in the background. So if I click on this, Nmap says it is scanning all those ports. So if you see here, like just above the table, that 65,530 closed ports. So it was trying to detect everything, and we can only see the open ports here. So with this flag, you can actually perform a full port scan on a particular IP or a subnet for that matter. So if I try to do it on my whole network, as I showed you, I can use 0TAC24 to scan all the 256 hosts in my network. As you can see, it was first checking for all the hosts if they're down or up. If it is down, it is completely ignoring it. And whichever hosts are up, it is performing a port scan on it. And in your initial stage, I would recommend that you always use TAC-V because so that you know what exactly is going around in the background. It's always good to read the output that is being flashed. Yes, this will definitely take a lot of time because it is scanning all the hosts in my network and it is scanning all the 65,530 ports on those posts. Right now, we can see the scan is about 75.14%. This totally depends upon the complexity of the network, how complex it is or how simple it is. If we perform the same action on some renowned domains like Google or Microsoft, it will take you forever, or you might need a very powerful machine to do that. As you see, it is taking a lot of time. So imagine what timeline it will take to do it on a renowned host. We can do the question answer if you want. Anyone has any question regarding? Meanwhile, the scan is running. We discussed a lot of switches up till now. And guys, please specific questions to the flags.
So I have a question.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I've seen we are using some flags, and we had to receive feedback whereby the firewall was blocking the results. And how are these attacks made? Because these companies that like Uber, they have expensive equipment. So how is the attack bypassed via the firewall?
So this Nmap is not used to bypass things, but it is just an reconnaissance tool where you can learn about the services that are running. So there is a possibility that even big giants like Uber or maybe Google or Microsoft, they have detections and many things going on. They can even ban your IP, that they are looking for a specific thing that is flooding their network. So if it is not authorized, they will block you. And in that case, your scan might take a little longer, and Nmap is just making assumptions on some services on the port. So it is not 100% accurate, but it gives you an overview of the network. So how it can be. So if you like deep dive into all these things, like how to scan a network and how a service is hosted on a network, then maybe you can enumerate those things. You can also make assumptions on what kind of services are running. For example, on port 80, we have 100% accuracy that it might be running HTTPS only. So, well, in that case, you can make assumptions too.
Nikhil sir, you're on mute.
Yes. Okay, the previous question was not answered. Sorry. I think my virtual machine is behaving weird. I need to restart, I think. I'm not able to access my tabs. I'll just go ahead and kill this scan. I just showed you how to do a full port scan, right? So I'll show you how to do a specific port scan. Like we know that the machine that we were scanning. This Nmap. So if you want to do a specific port scan, for example, in my virtual vulnerable lab, we know that there are port 21 and 22 open. So if I want to do a particular port scan, I can just say that port 21, 22 on definitely the host I'm looking for or was model. Um, Sorry, it's 9, 6. Do it again. Also, go ahead and specify the port range you want. 1000. Okay, so with this said, we are performing a port range. Like I want to see whether there are any ports open from port 1 to port 1000. So the results are saying that there are 4 ports open. And in my previous scan to the same host, you could see that there was one more port available, and that was 3306. Since we are only scanning till 1 to 1000, I'm not getting that port. With this, we can also do a fast port scan. Let's demonstrate that. You can use the flag F, the host. This is giving me results quickly. And we can see that the other port is also available, that is 3306, since we didn't mention the range and we are just trying to search everything. Okay, so there's one more flag which, like as I told you, if I want to scan whole of my subnet, so what we do is we perform a normal scan wherein 105, I want to scan my whole subnet. So I perform this, right? All the subnet minus 3. But in there is a switch that is inbuilt in Nmap. We can use that, and that is SN to enumerate all the ports that are available. For the track V. So basically, it's doing the same thing, and it is giving me some different kind of output, but it's one and the same. It means the same. You can see all the hosts down. If you want to just scan the devices that are in the network. So if you don't use any flag and you use this /24, it will also use the default scripts and try to look for service versions or maybe the service, the name of the services that is running. So if you just want to pull up the host names that is running on a particular network, you can use this switch. As you can see, all my devices are shown up here. Also, there are times like wherein it is blocking the ports and it is not allowing us to like know whether there are any ports available or not. In this scenario, you can always use TAC-PN. I'll do that on my local host. So, switch scan. Okay, so what this is doing, this is basically pinging all the ports in a network, and it is showing us that only these ports are available. Whether those ports are up or not, it is not ignoring them. It is just flashing. And if there are any services running, you will definitely see in this table. These are some different kinds of switch that are interrelated to each other. You can always combine these switches. Okay, so speaking of combining things, what we'll do is we'll combine the service version that I showed you earlier, is P, and we'll combine this with a special switch that is scripts defaults. SC stands for default. So if I click on this, I'll remove the PN. So what this will do is, this will also perform a version detection on those ports, and also if there are any defaults scripts that are available to check whether what kind of versions or exactly what is running. So here you can see a lot of output coming out. For example, on the port 80, there's an Apache server. You can also see the PHP session ID, HTTP only, the HTTP title, that is the damn vulnerable web app that I'm hosting here on my local network. This is probably using a Perl Unix mode, and that is running on Perl. You can also see the cookie flag here on port 443. Since this is just a basic overview of this application, we won't dive deep into all these services. But yeah, you can always look for more things, and you can have a better picture of the environment. For instance, here you can also see the common name of the SSL certificate that is there on this particular host that we are trying to scan. So the TAC SC, that stands for like default scripts, is also pulling the common name. This is very useful in a pen test environment where you can know all those things. Like if there is some SSL thing going on, you can always add this to your host so that it is not ignored by your DNS server. Okay, so there was someone saying about the IP spoofing. So you can always, if you don't, like if you do a default scan, like if you don't put any flags, and, I'll quickly show you the IP address of my computer. This is the IP I'm having here. So when we do a default scan, when we don't use any switch and we perform a scan, Nmap is automatically fetching this IP as the source IP since we are performing this action from this particular machine. So it is always trying to scan those particular networks that we have thrown at it using this IP address. It might be different in your scenario, but in my case, it's 1.136 in my local subnet. This is my local subnet, and this is my local IP. So with IP spoofing, you can like if you want to perform IP spoofing, like if you don't want to reveal your IP, or in some other scenario where you want to as in you want to use some other IP address that you know which won't be blocked at that end. So you can always use this flag. I'm performing this. If I just go ahead and perform this, it will do a normal scan. But if I go ahead and put this switch TAC S for the source, you can always throw IP at it that I want to scan it from this source. Okay, I missed it. It's capital S. Thank you, Nmap, for pointing out that. Okay. So it's not able to do that because it is not able to reach this IP. So if you have like multiple boxes on your device and you're using a particular device to scan things, but then you want to expose a particular IP that is being showcased on a scan. So you can always use this tag S, capital S, and the IP address that you want to use to perform this scan. If you don't put this flag, it will always assume that you're scanning through this default. It will always take your scan machine's IP as the default IP address. But if you want to specify some IP address that you want to scan from, you can always use this flag. So, there are any questions so far?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, the command you listed, just the previous one, it includes /d for decoy 1, decoy 2, and it has a description for clock scan with decoys. Sir, what does, yes, sir, you just passed it. Firewall ID invasion and spoofing.
Yeah, it's basically it's related to each other. As I said, that I'm not able to perform that scan right now because I don't have this host up and running here. So you can say that this is actually a decoy server that I'm, if at all, if I have this IP or this machine running on my network, and if that is my decoy server, I can always use those IP. I can always use that IP address to spoof my identity that I'm not scanning from 1.136, but I am definitely scanning from 1.104.
Okay.
But
Thank
right
you,
now,
sir.
I don't have this machine running in my system, so which is why Nmap is giving me this error.
Sir, what about if I have a machine, so the situation would be changed, means what would be the output? Means how could
It
we
will definitely,
determine?
it will definitely, you won't see any other output in the scan, but it will definitely show you all the services as if you have done a normal default scan. But at the other end, like I said, if you are doing this on a big organization like Google or Microsoft, they are having some detection mechanisms in their end, right? So they will always get this IP address, the decoy server IP address. They will think that you are trying to perform, or maybe the packets that is being received on their end is coming from this decoy server and not your default IP address. So this is why it is used.
Thank you, sir.
So with that said, we have covered most of the basic commands that is used in this Nmap. There are more things to this, but we will dive deep into this in some later advanced sessions of Nmap, as this was the basic overview of what you can do using this Nmap tool in a networking environment. Basically, a network exploitation tool.
Sir,
Yeah, please go ahead.
uh, we cannot use SN and PN both flag together. Why? And what's the difference between them?
Okay, because SN and PN, they are correlated. As I said, if you use PN, I'm audible, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you use PN, it is ignoring all the ports that are down or hosts that are down, and it is scanning everything. And with SN, it is doing basically the same thing, but in a different scenario. Like it is looking for all the IP addresses that are available. So even if it is down, PN will show it up on the output. So you are not certain whether those services are up or running. So which is why Nmap is preventing you to use both, because it is kind of doing the same thing. Because in that scenario, SN is just helping you discover the host. But with PN, it is helping you discover the ports only. So that is the major difference, but it's kind of one of the same. It's correlated to each other.
Okay, so sir, some command needs privilege of root, and some command don't need. How we can decide in an can you hear?
I'll come to that. Yeah, so some commands need superior privileges, right? You said. So, like some commands, they are basically performing a system level scan. So, in that case, it is you definitely need to be super user to do that. And some basic commands, as in, for example, I'll tell you if you ping a server, you don't need to be root, right? So, ping is just basically blindly trying to see knocking on the services that whether it is up or not. So you don't need system level privileges for that. But in case of detecting things like any versions or any stealth scanning, I would say, so it requires super user privileges because it is trying to like scan things from a system level. So you need root for that. And there are many other security level complications that are involved. So which is why it is recommended to be root. But from a security perspective, it's not always necessary that you use root for that.
Okay, sir. Sir, Mac spoofing is also possible by Nmap.
Yes, you can definitely do that. There's a switch for it. And yeah, let's go ahead and demonstrate that. And we need to use this in a combination of okay. There's a flag for it. Spoof. And you can put in your MAC address. And definitely the target, whatever it is. So you can see the command on my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so you can definitely perform a MAC spoofing using this command that you see on my screen.
Okay, sir.
Is there any other question? Because I think we have covered a lot of things that is like very useful in the basic environment. So you can always go ahead and perform these actions that we learned today on some network. Like it's definitely not recommended to perform it on an unauthorized network.
So I have a question for that command, the MAC spoofing command.
Okay.
When you run that command, does it automatically generate a MAC address that is going to be used, or because I'm seeing you following it with the IP address?
No, it is not. I don't have an example right now for the MAC address. So I just blindly wrote MAC address in that. So you can go ahead and put in a valid MAC address. That's fine.
Okay. Okay.
So any service detection that is being hosted on the network that you're trying to scan will get that MAC address and not your real MAC address.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Is there any questions to this or any other questions? Hello, Nikhil sir, are you there? Hello. Is there any other questions so far?
Sir, any project related to Nmap we can make, because there is a lots of IP scanning tool we can make by Python script, but it is very beginner level.
Yeah. So you can always use Nmap for this. You can just master this Nmap first. I mean, Nmap gives you a lot of output, and all other IP scanning tools that you're mentioning here is like totally automated. It's very advanced because you won't be able to learn things in that. Once you master this tool and you know how things are being run in the background and how things are being detected, you can always jump to the new tools. But I would suggest you stick to the Nmap first, because this gives you a lot of information that you can learn out of it. It's
Yes, sir,
always
but
better to master one tool first.
I am asking that any project we can make made
Okay, okay,
using the
okay,
Nmap.
okay. So that will be shared by Nikhil sir, and will be given some assignments. I think he's not online. I'm trying to reach him. You will be shared some link to work on. Just a second.
Sir, Nikhil sir is online. He is posting quiz links.
Okay, okay. He's not responding. Okay, so guys, you can just go ahead with the quiz form and the feedback form.
Hello, excuse me, sir. I have one question.
Yes, please.
Sir, when we do scan with hyphen A flag, that means aggression scan, then it will leave footprints or something like that. What was the difference between normal scanning and hyphen A scanning?
Yes, it will definitely leave some footprints. Like it is not a stealth scan. If you perform that scan, you will definitely be detected, but you get a lot of output from that device. So if you want to perform a stealth scan, you should always avoid those flags. There's a big difference in that.
Okay, sir. Sir, events like CTF and all, we may use hyphen A, right?
Yeah, you can, but there are some difficult boxes wherein if you are using those flags, there might be some mechanism that is detecting those things and you might get blocked. So it's always good to perform a stealth scan and then check whether there is some things or not. And in some scenarios like CTFs, it will always be mentioned whether what kind of scenarios they are using or what kind of scans they might be expecting from you guys to do. You will learn that gradually once you start performing all those actions, like when to use it or when not to.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Sir, I have one more question. Many people, I saw many people using Rust Scan and other tools. Uh, they are even too much faster than Nmap.
Yes, because
Any
Nmap is
additional?
like a traditional tool. It is a very basic tool that is helping you. I would say that this is a kind of a Swiss army knife for the network administrators or maybe networking pen testers. So with Rush Scan, it is much faster because it is built on a new technology. So it helps you run much faster scans.
Sir,
This
which
is
is most
Nmap is a very
preferable?
old tool. Sorry.
Sir, which is most preferable according to you?
In my later stages, I started using Nmap and I learned how things are performed. But I also use Scan, but I prefer Nmap for most of my tasks.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So you said Rust scans are faster, but you still prefer using Nmap. Is that your personal preference or something you have learned with experience that it's better?
Uh, you're right, but I prefer Nmap because it is giving me a lot of output related to a service or if I can perform a scan or not, or a lot of things. Like with the Rush Scan and tools like that, most of the things are automated. Like it is ignoring all the traditional things that Nmap is performing, and it is just giving you results. So if you master all these tools like Nmap first, and then you move on to those Rush Scan, so you will always have a overview of things like how Rush can reach to your goal. But with Nmap, you can actually read all those outputs. Like I said, Nmap is a traditional tool.
Sir, can